we are open for this kind of discussion. We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart. But it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats. It's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance and the European Union stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us.
Denmark's Foreign Minister Lars Rasmussen openly challenged President Donald Trump's pressure tactics over Greenland. The Danish Foreign Minister made it clear that intimidation will not work. He said Trump will never achieve his aims on Greenland by putting pressure on Europe, stressing that coercion only hardens resistance among allies. Rasmussen said the message was meant to push the United States back into the meeting room, signaling that diplomacy, not threats, remains the only acceptable path forward. His remarks come amid escalating tensions after Trump warned of tariffs against European allies linked to the Greenland dispute. Asked directly whether a U.S. invasion of Greenland could be ruled out, Rasmussen delivered a stark response. He said nothing could be excluded until the president himself explicitly ruled it out, underlining the uncertainty now clouding transatlantic relations. Rasmussen stressed that the principles of sovereignty and territorial integrity must be defended collectively. He urged NATO and European Union allies to stand firm, warning that failure to do so would weaken the alliance at a critical moment.
I also made it very clear that we are open for this kind of discussion. We are pragmatic, cold-blooded Scandinavian people with a warm heart. But it is not easy when we wake up every morning to new threats. Please convey that message to the president. And therefore, for a second, I thought, we have managed not to solve the problem, but to find a pathway forward. It was disrupted by the statement from the president, and that's a reality of life. And that's why it's so important that all our allies in the NATO alliance and the European Union stand up for these principles to show the American president, you have a desire, you have a vision, you have a request, but you will never be able to achieve that by putting pressure on us. That signal is of crucial importance in order to, I would say, to push the Americans back into the meeting room as we agreed last week. I used the word surprised, and I think I will stay on that. I mean, I have no intention to escalate things. I've had this discussion with the president in my former capacity as Prime Minister, and it's a matter of fact that we had casualties in Afghanistan totally similar to the U.S. Casualties. At that specific occasion, he said, you made a good argument. I want to repeat that one. And of course, I realize that the Vice President said you could have done many things, proper in the past. Will that define the future? I think it gives you credit. I mean, you can always count on Denmark, as we always can count on UK. Well, first of all, my response to the Prime Minister is that we really appreciate the very strong statement for him from his side, arguing that, there are principles in life. And even though UK has a very special relationship to UK, which I acknowledge, especially after Brexit, there are red lines which can't be crossed. This is a matter of basic principles, and we are living in 2026 where you can trade with people, but you can't trade people. And listening to a UK Prime Minister who stands up for that principle is very, very important. And then, of course, I realize you can't leave anything out until the President himself have decided to leave anything out.
Analysts say Europe is now facing a strategic reckoning. Grégoire Rose of Chatham House said leaders must adapt to what he called a new Trumpian rationality. He argued Trump's political logic is fundamentally different from the approach Europe has followed for decades. He warned that understanding this new reality may be essential if Europe hopes to manage relations with Washington without further escalation.
What anyone dealing with the US president should do now is leaving emotions aside, even if they are rightful ones. I know it's difficult, and understand that whatever we see and whatever we deal with and whomever we deal with, They're all very different, radically different from what we've been used to for the past, I don't know, I would tend to say decades, possibly centuries. There is a very Trumpian rationality. It just happens not to be the old Europe's rationality, and we need to come to terms with that. The problem is that when something sounds irrational, we tend not to take it seriously. And it's something we need to do now. I think Donald Trump is someone very smart, way more strategic than we might tend to think he is. He has something that we have underestimated is quite uncommon in politics, to be honest, is his consistency. And then the finance minister of Germany said, you know, the French president is right. We need to be ready to exert our rightful right, if I may say so, of coercion, and that would go through the anti-coercion instrument of the European Union. If you look at what really matters for the Republicans in terms of electoral groups, farmers are an important community as much as all the tech moguls. And as a matter of fact, the EU could decide to impose tariffs on agricultural goods. The EU could decide to impose some more tariffs on services. And what's very interesting is that one could really senses now that Europeans would be willing to pay a higher price to defend European sovereignty. What we are seeing now is the kind of weaponization of the discourse. I use words, you know, you would never have, no one would have imagined to hear the EU talk about coercion and seeing such a strong Franco-German alignment in this regard, even 6 months ago. Now we hear it. Very strong words. But I guess the diplomacy will come into play. Once we have that, we'll have channels. We'll see in Davos. There will obviously be discussions, although the Danes have said that they wouldn't send any senior official. You'll have the French. You'll have the German Chancellor. The European Commission President will travel there. And it's likely that there will be behind closed door discussions. So one could logically expect some cooling down. What will matter, though, after Donald Trump said so strongly and fiercely that he intends to grab Greenland indeed, is that he doesn't lose face. I think that's crucial, that Europeans play in such a way they can, that he does backpedal without him feeling that he does so and without him looking like he does so. But that's the genius of diplomats.